Welcome to Understanding the Annual Report Part 2, GL Assessments. This year, for the first year, Henlo will be sending home the GL Parent Report for English, Maths and Science for you to have a look at so you can understand where your child is progressing and where they also need some more support. First of all, we're going to start with the PT English. This is the Individual Report for Parents UK Standardisation by the GL Assessment. So at the top of your report, you will see your child's name, their school, the date of their first test, which in most cases will be last year. In some cases, in year 5, this will be at the start of this year and then at the end of this year. You then have here what is the progress test in English with some explanation here that you will receive. The next section here are the scores, and this is rather complicated. So we're going to look at this a little bit more detail. Here you've got the number of questions that have been attempted by the child. So there are 50 questions, and in this case, in both cases of James and Helen, 50 questions have been answered. This is a very important section of the test, of the results, because it tells us whether a child has worked very slowly and accurately or whether they've finished the test very quickly. Because if they finish very slowly but accurately, this affects how well we know they can learn, how quickly they learn. Then we have the SAS score. This is the standard age score, and it's the most important piece of information derived from the PTE. The standard age score is based on the student's raw score, which has been adjusted for age and placed on a scale that makes a comparison with a nationally representative sample of students of the same age across the UK. The average score is 100. The standard age score is key to benchmarking and tracking progress and is the fairest way to compare the performance of different students within a year group or across year groups. Here you can see the standard age score of James Campbell is 105, and that's represented here by this dot. However, there are degrees of confidence, which is why it goes from 100 to 110. The National Percentile Rank NPR relates the standard age score and indicates the percentage of a student obtaining any particular score. NPR of 50 is average. NPR of 5 means that a student's score is within the lowest 5% of national sample. NPR of 95 means a student's score is within the highest 5% of national. Moving on to the overall STAY9. The STAY9 places a student's core score on a scale of 1, low, to 9, high, and offers a broad overview of his performance. In the case of James, we can see that he is scoring 5, which is relatively average, whereas Helen, she is scoring 7, which is very close to being high. The GR here, out of 30, is the group rank and shows how each student has performed in comparison to those in the defined group. So here, this James is representatively 13th in the school ranking of that age group, and here Helen is 6th. The GCSE indicator here is different to what you would have seen in previous years. The B and A are representative of what we all know as GCSE grades, whereas the 5 and 7 are the new scale grading which will come into effect from this summer. This is a conversion chart of that. So you can see broadly that the 0 to 9 grades go up in the same fashion that U to A star did. The 9 is not representative of an A star. Instead, it is more representative of an A star plus, which is a grade that we have not heard of in GCSE terms before. This is the rough estimation of how the grades from previous years will compare to the number grades from this year. Back to this chart. Here you can see this is the English example scores. So this is the English Skills ST and it includes spelling, grammar and punctuation questions. Here we have the reading comprehension, and the reading comprehension was separated into two sections. One is a short story extracted from a book or novel by an established children's author, and the other is an information text. Here you can see the progress category, and for both James and Helen, they are at an expected rate. This will be expressed as higher than expected, higher expected, lower than expected, and much lower than expected. Further down the report, you can see analysis of the curriculum content categories. Here we have in English, spelling, grammar and punctuation, narrative and non-narrative. This is the number of questions available for each section. This is the percentage that the child got correct in each section. This is the national percentage of the same age and ability in the same test. And this is the comparison between the two. Here we also have analysis of reading comprehension. In the same way, the number of questions, what percentage the child got correct against the national percentage correct. On the reverse of the page for the English assessment, you will see that there is a description of scores. Now within this, there is some advice for parents. For example, to develop Paul's English skills, games involving adding suffixes to root words and generating synonyms and antonyms within time limits could be helpful. Also, record sentences of text and ask him to add punctuation such as a comma and semicolons based on spoken emphasis. Generating as many possible versions of sentences using different modal verbs can, could, may, might, will, would, must, shall, should, ought to could also support confidence in this area. Now on to the Maths Individual Report for Parents UK standardisation. This is laid out in a very, very similar way to that of English. It starts here with an explanation of the test. You then go down to the number of questions attempted. In this case, it was 66 out of 68. The SAS, the standard age score, is 126, which would be representative here, and this is the confidence intervals. The overall ST, the STAY9, places the student's score on a scale of 1 to 9, and in this case, at 8, it is considered very high. The NPR relates to the SAS and indicates the percentage of students obtaining any particular score. NPR of 50 is average. NPR of 5 means that the student's score is within the lowest 5%, and in this case, at 96, it is within the 96 percentage. This GCSE indicator here shows that the child, if they continue on a linear pathway, will get an A star at the end of their GCSE, or equivalent to a level 8, and they are making higher than expected progress in this area. Again, you've got the different summary of questions, followed by the number of questions in that area, followed by the percentage that were correct by the child, followed by the national percentage that were correct, and then the difference here. You can see this child has done particularly well in these three areas of algebra, ratio, and geometry. On the reverse, you can see again there are more questions here, and then description of the scores. And again here you've got more advice as parents as to how you can help your child. For example, allow Paul to teach you. Involve Paul in real life problem solving, such as pocket money calculations, weekly, equivalents by month, year. How long would it take to save for something special, for example. Then on to science. The science report again looks very, very similar. You have the same structure with the progress tests in science and how understanding that. Then the number of questions attempted in the science test. The SAS, the standard age score, in this case 138, which is particularly high up here with the confidence intervals. The overall STAY9 is 9, which is the highest, and this child performed in 99th percentile, achieving GCSE prediction of an A and an 8. In science, you can see that the subjects are broken down between biology, chemistry, physics, and science overall, which is working scientifically. Here you have the breakdown of biology, chemistry, and physics. Here's the number of questions for each, the percentage the child got correct in the test compared to the national percentage of correct. On the reverse of this report, it actually says here supporting learning at home. And these are lots of ideas in ways that you can help your child to improve their science further. Thank you very much for listening.